All right, well, I think we can get started. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar, Enabling Change Around the World with Teaching at the Right Level. My name is Jamie Lee. I'm the Education Design Specialist at HundrED, and I'm so excited to have you all here today for this insightful discussion. So, this webinar is part of a series of online events that are being hosted by selected innovators of the Global Collection 2026. And today I'm excited to be handing it over to Pratham, who are the innovators behind the innovation Teaching at the Right Level, which you will hear more about shortly. A few housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded, so don't worry if you miss anything. It will be published on our event page afterwards and also sent out to everyone that has registered. And there will also be some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions at any time during the event, feel free to put them either in the chat or there is also a Q&A box, and we will try our best to get to them. Also, there are translated captions for this Zoom webinar, and you can enable them to translate the discussion to your language of choice. All you have to do is click Show Captions at the bottom and then choose the language that you would like to translate them to. All of our speakers will be speaking in English today as well, so you can also enable captions to to help you out in that regard. So yes, without further ado, I would like to introduce Devyani Prashad, the Chief Program Officer at Pratham International, who will be facilitating today's webinar. Welcome, Devyani.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making time. I can see that we are joining from different parts of the world. This is very exciting. I just see someone here from Azerbaijan. Welcome. Thank you again for joining us for this very interesting discussion today. Today's webinar intends to really be a sharing of experiences, of learnings, and giving you a glimpse into how teaching at the right level has spread across the globe. I will tell you more about teaching at the right level in just a minute. But before that, I'd like to introduce my speakers who have made time to join us today, and we are very grateful. First up, we have Mustafa Chidali, who is a primary pedagogical inspector at the Provincial Directorate of Ifrain in Morocco. Mustafa has been a teacher for many years before he actually joined the Inspector Training Center. He has many interests in education, and I'd like to say that Mustafa is one of the strongest teaching at the right level champions in Morocco, and we're so excited to have him here speaking to us. One thing you'd like to know about Mustafa is that he's always been interested in STEM, and he is also a prolific app developer. So we're looking forward to seeing some of those apps, Mustafa. Welcome, and thank you again for making time.
Thank you, Devyani.
Thank you. Welcome. Next up, we have Titus Siengo. Titus is the Executive Director of the Teaching at the Right Level Africa Initiative, or TaRL Africa. Titus has been leading the organization, its strategy and mission, and overseeing the growth of the organization over the past many years. Titus brings today experience of working closely with ministries of education across the Sub-Saharan African context. And we're really excited to hear about TaRL Africa's journey about scaling up and prioritizing system integration. Welcome, Titus. A very interesting fact about Titus is that on the very first day of his first job, Titus was actually sent away for not wearing a suit. That's hilarious, Titus. I don't know if anyone else in the audience has actually experienced something like that. We'd love to hear your stories in the chat as well, and more from on that from Titus later. Welcome, Titus.
Thank you.
Great. And if you look in the chat, it's great to see that we have so many people joining us from all over the world. Just a reminder for people who are coming in just now, we are going to be introducing our speakers. We've heard already about Mustafa from Morocco and Titus from Sub-Saharan Africa, who's based in Kenya. Please do introduce yourselves in the chat so that your co-attendees can also see who else is on the webinar today. And please enable closed captions. You will see a button at the bottom that says CC, and choose the language of captions in case you would like to read in a language other than English. We will all be speaking in English today. So welcome again, everybody. Our next speaker for today is Maritza Trejo. Maritza is the Regional Education Director for Glasswing International. Glasswing is one of our most committed partners in the Latin American Caribbean region. They have been working in Central America and across the region for many years on issues of that address root causes of violence, poverty, and irregular migration in Central America. Maritza brings a dearth of experience across designing and implementing education programs, working with children and youth. And the interesting fact about Maritza is that she actually enjoys spicy food, especially from India. And unlike many of her friends in the region, she can really handle spice well. So welcome, Maritza, and we look forward to sharing some Indian food with you when we see you next in India.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Karthik Menon. Karthik is from Pratham Education Foundation, which is the organization that has developed and designed the Teaching at the Right Level approach. Karthik has been with Pratham for many, many years and worn many different hats. But currently, he leads government partnerships, which is the work that Pratham is doing at scale in India with a number of partnerships with a number of governments across the country, working in more than 10 states. And Karthik specializes in supporting design, rollout, and review of education programs in collaboration with governments and the Pratham teams. Karthik is actually from South India. He's from Kerala. He has been born and brought up in North India, in Delhi. He is currently living in West India, which is in Mumbai, and he's actually married to someone from East India, Kolkata. So truly an international Indian citizen. Karthik, welcome. And very excited to have you here today. And just a reminder, I'm Devyani Prasad. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Pratham International. My Pratham journey has also been very interesting. I began with the organization in India. I've been working now for close to a decade with the adaptation of Teaching at the Right Level and other Pratham innovations to contexts outside of India. And I'm very excited to have all of my brilliant colleagues here with me today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Before we dive into the discussion and really hear from the speakers, that's the most interesting part of today, I thought I'll tell you a little bit about Teaching at the Right Level and the journey we've been through with Teaching at the Right Level. So, as many of you might know, Teaching at the Right Level was developed by Pratham in India as a response to the challenge of low foundational literacy and numeracy skills. What evolved as, what began as an approach pioneered by Pratham in India has really evolved into today a global movement trying to improve foundational and literacy and numeracy across South and Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East and North Africa, and Latin America. We're very excited to have such a diverse group of speakers today who will share about how TaRL has been adapted in their regions, in their context, share stories, learnings, challenges, and impact from TaRL programming in their context, and hopefully answer any questions that you might have about these varied experiences. So what is TaRL? I'm sure many of you are already familiar with Teaching at the Right Level. Teaching at the Right Level, as I mentioned, was developed as a way to respond to the challenge that we see in contexts across the globe now since the past decade or more. If you look at global data on reading and math, 7 out of children in low and middle income countries are unable to read simple text by age 10. Now that is a horrifying statistic, which all of us are very familiar with today. And I think everyone has exciting solutions and innovations that they are trying to really overcome this this issue, not just at a program level, but also at scale across systems. And that's really where Teaching at the Right Level comes in as one such solution. So Teaching at the Right Level is really trying to enable systems to move from this idea of schooling for all towards learning for all. I'm sure many of us will appreciate now that schooling doesn't necessarily equal learning, especially for children who do not have the adequate support in contexts which are resource constrained, where teachers don't have the adequate support. So Teaching at the Right Level has evolved over the years to be able to adapt itself to any context to really achieve this goal of enabling learning for all. Some key aspects of Teaching at the Right Level for us to remember is that Teaching at the Right Level works best when there is dedicated time allocated for this type of implementation, for this type of teaching in classroom or community settings. Teaching at the right level works by grouping students by their current learning levels rather than by age or grade, and using an innovative, interactive classroom methodology to help children accelerate their acquisition of reading and math skills. We ensure that implementers are being able to take on this new innovation, this new way of working with children by ensuring adequate support. So teaching at the right level places great emphasis on developing leaders of practice to support teachers and instructors who are trying to help children progress through ongoing and on-site mentoring to these instructors and facilitators. We've also seen with our experience that teaching at the right level, as in terms of Pratham's approach to teaching and learning, works best for children aged 7 or 8 and older, or also you might say children in grades 3 and above in most cases. Teaching at the right level has been supported by a number of evaluations over the years, a number of studies, and now a growing body of evidence globally that shows time and again that this approach works to improve children's foundational reading and math skills. For those of you who are interested in learning more about teaching at the right level, my colleagues later on in the webinar will be sharing more resources in the chat. So just to give you a sense of what's actually happening inside the classroom or with a group of children, teaching at the right level begins with a simple one-on-one assessment to group children by level rather than by grade. Children are supported by instructors who are taught the methodology, who are given opportunities to try new games, to try new activities with children, to really make the classroom a joyful learning space and make sure that all children are progressing at their own pace. That's really what we mean by teaching at the right level. Each group of children is supported through a set of activities and materials. Children work as a whole class, they work in small groups, they work individually, and as they progress, they move forward. Similar assessments as the one done initially are conducted to ensure that we can keep track of progress and course correct to make sure that all children are progressing. So that's really teaching at the right level in a nutshell. Just to give you a sense of what the spread of teaching at the right level looks like globally, as we can see, teaching at the right level began in India and has grown across the country over the past many years, continuing to be implemented at scale by governments, in communities, and now increasingly by partners. The Teaching at the Right Level Africa initiative, which was born in 2018-2019, has already reached more than 7 million children across Sub-Saharan Africa, and with growing partnerships across the globe, more than 5 million children. But over time, Teaching at the Right Level has really impacted millions of lives, not only in India, but also now across the globe. So the map just gives you a quick glimpse of what the spread of teaching at the right level looks like globally. So I'm now going to invite our first duo of speakers to tell us a bit about their experiences with teaching at the right level. So welcome, Karthik and Titus. Great. And welcome, Peter from Sierra Leone. Great. Thank you so much again, Karthik and Titus, for making time. Karthik, I know it's late for you, so thank you once again. I'm going to start with you, actually, Karthik. We all know that teaching at the right level was born in India now many, many years ago, and the approach has really come a long way since it was first developed in India. So how has the approach evolved in your view, and why?
Thank you, Devyani. Great question to kick things off, and so glad to see so many people tuning in from around the world. So welcome, and I'm glad I'm able to share our experiences from India. As you mentioned, teaching at the right level has evolved over the last two decades, you could say. It started around 2009-10. And since then, a lot has happened. A lot has also happened, at least from an Indian point of view, in the education landscape in India. We have a national mission that was launched about 5 years ago called Nipun Bharat that gives utmost importance to improving foundational literacy and numeracy. It's a national mission that all schools in India are trying to achieve. There is a clear goal that has been set that by 2027, all children in up to grade 3 should be able to read and do basic arithmetic. But the challenge has been that it's limited to grade 3. So there's a lot of momentum, a lot of focus on foundational learning, but it's still the goal has been decided up to grade 3. What happens next? As you mentioned in your slides, the need is actually to improve foundational literacy for children who've been in the system for a couple of years. As your slide mentioned, they're 7 years or 8 years old. They may be in grade 3, maybe in grade 4, but even after being in the school system, they haven't achieved the basic literacy numeracy skills that they need. And there is then the pressure of the curriculum and the textbooks that they have to study every day. So, what is an approach that could actually get them to a certain level so that they can engage with this curriculum? And that's where teaching at the right level comes in. And it's evolved over time in terms of its delivery, who are the people who are implementing it. There have been innovations in the methodology. So I just want to point out a couple of them that many of my colleagues may resonate with and potentially also give them some ideas. So one thing over time in India we've seen is that teaching at the right level at its core, the way you explained it, is being done by government school teachers. And in multiple states in India, this is being done in all schools. So all children of a specific state and very large states in India are able to do teaching at the right level delivered via government school teachers who've actually put the curriculum aside and are able to follow this approach for 2 hours a day, in most cases, focusing on literacy and numeracy. The other evolution that has come in is that it's not only delivery by school teachers, but we see during downtime, especially during summer breaks or extended breaks that we have in the academic year, that youth volunteers, if you train them, give them some adequate resources, they can do a version of teaching at the right level. We've seen that it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to the education department. In India, we have a lot of tribal schools which come under the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, and they have schools and they have teachers who can adopt this methodology. A lot of municipalities in urban locations can take it up. So we've seen that the instructor doesn't necessarily have to be a government school teacher. The approach is easy enough to take up, but rigorous enough to actually implement in their setting. We've seen, and this has been a learning from COVID, that teaching at the right level type practices can also be used through low-cost tech solutions by sending targeted SMSs at the level of the child, and we've seen some good results there as well. So that way, there is a lot of agility and adaptability in teaching at the right level over time. From where it started, when the RCTs were done, there were certain models that were established then. And since then, looking at what's going on, we've been able to adapt it in different settings. Some things, because Pratham has been doing this for many years, we've seen that it's been embedded into the school calendar, for example, that every year there is provisioning, there is time in the timetable for teaching at the right level. A lot of the assessment frameworks that exist in schools have the assessment of teaching at the right level for reading and math embedded into the system. A lot of the tech solutions for data collection are now have data collection for teaching at the right level type assessment and process monitoring. And finally, I think some of our practices of developing leaders of practice and them doing practice classes themselves has actually trickled down into a general for all types of training at state. So it's not only the pedagogy that has actually translated into the system, it has some of the enabling factors like practice class, mentoring and monitoring that have that we see in other programs as well. On the horizon, I think where we're headed is what's the role of tech in teaching at the right level. Pratham and Pratham International team are developing solutions where how can AI kind of assist an instructor in a more effective way to how to use the assessment data that's coming in, and how can we use all this data that's coming in to support our mentors and monitors. So I think we're on that journey right now, and lots to do, but lots has been achieved till now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Karthik. And I think this is really great because, of course, you and I have been part of this journey, but for many others, I think who have joined us today, they've often learned about teaching at the right level only through evaluations, only through the reports that have been published. which are, very insightful, but some of them from many years ago. And I think it's great to see how much is continuously changing and how we are adapting to the circumstances and to opportunities that we see. So again, I'd like to encourage everyone that if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please do put them in the Q&A box. If you have any reflections on what you're hearing, please do share them in the chat as well. So thank you so much, Karthik. I'd like to invite Titus now to join us. Titus, Sub-Saharan Africa has really seen, I'd say, an explosion of teaching at the right level in the past years. And really thanks to the Teaching at the Right Level Africa initiative to a great extent, where now we saw that TaRL has been adapted for several different contexts across Sub-Saharan Africa. So what really has needed to change, and what were the adaptations that were necessary or that you're currently, that are ongoing to ensure effective adaptation across contexts, that are even within Sub-Saharan Africa very different from each other?
Thank you, Devyani, and thank you, Kartik, for that great explanation on some of the work in India. So I think, so I'm going to speak about our experience across Sub-Saharan Africa, where, as you have shown, there are many, many countries adopting TaRL. There's huge demand for TaRL across the continent. But my experience that I'm going to use here is based on national scale up in Zambia that has been reached this year, and also Cote d'Ivoire, and some of the states in Nigeria that have, scaled significantly at state level. That's where I draw most of the experience from, but also speak to a lot of the adaptations that we have to make. A lot of things probably are the same as what Kati could have shared, but I will speak to any variations that may have been there. For instance, in India, when the initial team that went to see the program saw it, there were two options of implementation, with the volunteer approach being much more applied in India. And more recently, we are seeing a lot of government implementation. When we came to Africa, we thought that as TaRL Africa, one of the ways that to ensure that there is sustainability of the program is to implement it through government systems. The major adaptation was that all trainers, all mentors that have to go to schools would have to be public school professionals, people already in public schools, whether those are teachers or they are the hierarchy of education, would be the ones that would be the master trainers and the trainers. So when you talk about leaders of practice, who are the key drivers of the program, those would be like public school professionals rather than public system professionals rather than volunteers. So that's been a huge change, and also one of the factors that has caused this bulging growth in numbers of children reached, but also in number of governments that are implementing the approach. When we come to a country, for instance, because we are implementing through government, we do co-creation with government so that we see what adaptations could work for them. And some of the things we have to talk about is how timetabling will happen in a way that it fits local routines and avoids disrupting core curricula, because TaRL is not necessarily curriculum aligned, but it focuses on skills that should have been learned earlier. So ministries of education would have set up, or would have, there are those ministries that already have a time for remediation. Those are easier to implement. And there are those others that would have to make a decision about when TaRL would be implemented in the course of the day. And that's a change that we've had, adaptation that we've had to make. Even target grades. I know evidence for TaRL is for grade 3, 4, and 5. But actually, there are countries that make a decision that we want it also for grade 6 and 7 because we see low learning levels. So those decisions include adaptations of TaRL that have to be made. In Africa, also, there would be countries that have like, over 100 languages. And TaRL evidence is mainly for local languages. And in many cases, we have to adapt the program or develop materials and content for every language that where in the catchment area where the program is being implemented. Those are huge changes that we have to do together with government and align it with the needs of government, including developing local materials so that we're not bringing any materials from outside. And then we also look at, as we do the assessments, what is the process for data collection? What data flows exist? What is the system that government that government can easily absorb? So if you align it with existing government systems, it's much easier for the government to take it. So we work with the systems that exist and work with the government to develop to think through how data would be collected. We also, if we are, as I mentioned before, our mode of delivery through established government systems also ensure that the cost of the program is not, so we consider the different, what government can afford, and therefore align with already existing maybe training mechanisms or already existing CPD programs that do exist for teachers. And then also one of the biggest changes that I see that happens over time after governments have seen the program and make it their own is then how to institutionalize the program so it becomes to the go-to approach for remediation. So there may be some policies that need to change, budgeting processes that maybe need to change so that government can afford the program in the long term. These adaptations ensure that TaRL remains flexible yet evidence-based because the core TaRL activities themselves may not change, but the materials may be different from one country to the other. So these ensure that the program remains flexible and is able to drive impact even in highly varied contexts in Africa. Thank you.
Great, Titus. And again, it's great to hear Titus sharing about this now, because I know that in the early years, it was really a process of discovering, uncovering, right? How do we work in the Sub-Saharan African context? How do we take experiences from India and really build that same magic in a context that is so different from our experiences in India. And I think it's really heartening to see the success of teaching at the right level on the continent today. And I think one thing I always like to share with everyone is that what's fascinating for me is that as we go from context to context and we are really adapting in so many different ways, we see that same magic being recreated in the classroom. And that's just amazing. And I think that's such a fantastic quality of teaching at the right level, that whether it's a classroom in Karnataka or it's a classroom in Zambia or it's a classroom in Morocco or in Colombia, we're able to see that same excitement, that same enthusiasm, and that same progress at the end of it. So thank you so much, Titus, for sharing. I know all of you must be wondering, oh, this is great to hear, but what's really happening in terms of impact with teaching at the right level? So I'm now going to invite Karthik and Titus to actually tell us a bit about the impact in their context. And Karthik, let's start with you.
Absolutely. So this is actual data from one of our large-scale government partnerships in the state of Karnataka. It's a state in southern India, and they're currently, as we speak, running teaching at the right level. The academic year gets over in March. However, this is from a previous year of what we were able to achieve. This is data from about 40,000 schools, little less than 1 million children working in grades 4 and 5. And for all the data geeks out there, this is a nice, clean, stacked bar chart. So if how we would read it is, if you look at baseline, as we mentioned earlier, we do an assessment. The teacher does an assessment. You group children in different levels. The levels for reading are beginner, where they're not children are not able to recognize letters. Then there's letters but are not able to recognize words. Then there's the word level. Then there's para. Para is usually mapped to about a grade 1 level text. And then there's this story, which is a grade 2 level text, which in most contexts is the goal that we're trying to achieve through teaching at the right level. The intervention in Karnataka ran for about 60 teaching days with 2 hours, 1 hour of language, the language of the state, which is Kannada, and arithmetic. And in 60 days, what we could see is that teachers were able to get children from 25% at story at baseline to about 56% at end line, which is a 31 percentage point improvement. In a very short period of time, in 60 odd days, you could get 30 odd percentage point improvement. And you could see that in other levels as well, at least jumping at least 1 or 2 levels. Similarly, if you see the graph on the right, it is for different arithmetic operations, basic operations for addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division. While the addition and subtraction levels at baseline were relatively high, the levels at multiplication and division, which is slightly higher order, were low. But again, in a period of 60 days, 1 hour of math, 1 hour of language, we could see at least 30 percentage point improvement. This is a trend that we see in most government partnership programs. A lot of times when Pratham delivers this directly, we see higher gains, but the scale is limited. So we feel slightly lower gains, but they're reaching millions of children. And year on year, if these programs run, we do see our grades 4 and 5 becoming higher and higher, and fewer kids needing teaching at the right level.
Thank you so much, Karthik. It's always, so exciting to see the kind of impact that can be made at scale with teaching at the right level. And I think Karnataka is a context in India where, we did see, let's say, relatively better baselines, but still so much scope for improvement. And great to see where the program could get to in such a short period of time. And now moving to Zambia, which is a very, very different context from Karnataka. So Titus, we'd love your insights a bit on this data. Sorry, Titus, you're on mute. We start again.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Devyani. Do we have the slides on?
Yep, we have the slides
Yeah,
up. Are you
right.
able to see them? Yeah.
Yeah, so what these slides do show is that ideally what you should seeing is the green, parts of the screen growing bigger. So the number of children, for example, in reading or mathematics that are doing operations from addition increasing from where it was at the baseline to the end line. And for reading, it is about reading at least at paragraph level. So if I can speak to what success looks like, Devyani at the start of this presentation said that children are in school but not learning, and we need to transition to the point where children are in school but are learning. So any improvement you see there is an indication that children are actually in school but learning, right? But also learning and also learning. So, so from baseline, if you look at the math section or numeracy section, is that we see an 11-point jump in at least a subtraction proficiency from 38% to 39 to 49%, representing the component of children who are able to do subtraction increasing over the period of implementation. And for reading at least at paragraph level, you see a 19-point change in reading from 44% to 63% that of children that could read a paragraph. That's a significant jump, but I want to speak to what we see over 3 years of implementation. For instance, if you start from grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5, what you would like to see and what we see is that these increments that are year by year keep increasing over the 3 years until you're getting children to 70% who can do these operations and those who can do reading. And that for us is what success is that we need to get to the point where we are not just talking about 9 out of 10 children not reading, but over 70% of children reading, over 70% of children doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So I think that's what success looks like. But at a nutshell, in an implementation of one period, this is how we see results panning out, like with 11% point jump and 19% point jump or leap in reading and in math. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Titus. There's actually a very interesting question in the Q&A box, which I think applies to both Titus and Karthik, but I'm going to come back to it live as well. If we have time later, can any of the speakers talk about the importance and process of institutionalizing education programs to make them affordable and adoptable by government? So I think Titus and Karthik will come back to this question later if we have time, but thank you so much for sharing your insights. And we're now going to move across the globe again. And I'd like to welcome Maritza and Mustafa. For those of you who joined us a bit later, Maritza is joining us from El Salvador. Maritza is at Glasswing International. And Mustafa is joining us from Morocco, from the Ministry of Education at Morocco. Welcome, Maritza and Mustafa. Mustafa, I'm going to start with you actually. So from a government perspective, now TaRL is part of the Pioneer School program in Morocco. So what were the non-negotiables in your mind for, adapting TaRL? And as you scale nationally, how are you ensuring that these core principles of the TaRL approach are not diluted?
Hi, Divyani. Hi, Maritza. I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join you as a primary pedagogical inspector from Morocco. I would like to salute also the participants who registered to the webinar so as to follow this interesting topic about TaRL and how could the TaRL contribute to the improvement of education around the world. Back to your question, Divyani, concerning the implementation of TaRL in Morocco, and based on the provided data, whether internally from the ministry or from our external partners, we could say that now Morocco has gone beyond the pilot phase of TaRL by passing the first wave of scaling up the model. And actually, we are in the second wave of scaling up TaRL within the framework that we have conceived and called the Pioneer Schools model. So how did we succeed in the scale-up process? First, we have taken into consideration 5 essential crucial measures, or let's say non-negotiable measures throughout this process. The first thing is the adaptation of TaRL to the local context. As you know, the original version of TaRL was about one language and math, but with regard to the national curriculum, we were obliged to align with the national curriculum in close collaboration with Pratham experts who helped us to make this effort of engineering a new version of TaRL that must be suitable to our local needs. So we worked on Arabic as first language, French as second language, and also mathematics. We don't say that this adaptation is final because we are in the process of continuous iteration and the improvement especially with regard to the cultural specificities and also the pedagogical specificities of French language and its phonological and phonemic complexities. The second crucial measure we didn't ignore is the process of training teachers. As you know, teachers are the principal practitioner of TaRL in their classroom. So to ensure the maintenance or the continuity of the impact while we are scaling up the project, we have defined a protocol of certifying teachers in TaRL approach. So we don't invite teachers in simple or traditional workshops, but they participate to certify the training that is multidimensional. It combines theoretical training, of course, but with the privilege given to the practice. Practice on both sides. Teachers must master TaRL activities in languages and math, and also must be initiated to the use of digital tools that helped us, whether in entering the data in the National Information System that we call MASAR, and generating remediation groups. So this is the aspect of the training that we have defined. It was very helpful for us to maintain this impact throughout the scaling up process. Let me mention the third cornerstone, which is the mentoring mechanism done by the pedagogical inspectors, because we throughout the scaling up process we have evolved by defining the roles and the missions of pedagogical inspectors from the traditional roles of controlling and evaluating to a new profile of a person who is present in the classroom to give support and to empower the teacher while he's delivering remedial activities with the kids. So the ministry is conscious of this role, and we are progressively improving and evolving and installing this new mindset among this pedagogical staff, which is doing a great job essentially by being daily present and bringing help and support to the teachers. The fourth major is the dual verification. Verification is a mechanism that guarantees the reliability of the data we collect while we pass the pre-test or post-test, and it is done internally by the pedagogical inspectors who attend the assessment of the pre-test and the post-test, and it is also done by external partners of the ministry who are experts in passing the test, and they are trained about other tests. Once we have the data of this verification, both from internal inspectors who belong to the ministry and the external partners, we calculate the rate of concordance. So to what extent the results found by the inspectors correspond to what the external evaluators did find. In 22-23, the rate of concordance we found was above 72%, which shows that the data we got is fully reliable and shows to what extent the TaRL activities we delivered to the students was very helpful for them in order to improve their learning. The fifth, maybe in my opinion, which is essential, is the institutionalization of TaRL now as an essential component within the system, because it is a state-led model. Actually, it is not led by an NGO or association, but it is incorporated as in official and essential components in the timetable of the ministry itself. In addition, we didn't stop at the first phase of TaRL as an intensive remediation done at the beginning of the school year, but we have also thought to conceive a second phase, which we call it extended remediation, that goes throughout the school year from October till June, and now it is integrated in the structure of the school year. And kids who are still struggling after the intensive period can benefit from additional sessions of remediation from certified teachers in TaRL approach. There is a final transversal component which guarantees reliability and also facilitates the tasks of all the actors, which is the the National Information System MASAR. It is our digital brain of the reform because it helps us to collect, to process, and to generate dashboards that helps all the stakeholders to see in real time the image of the kids learning and how they are progressing throughout the year. So these are in general the essential elements that we consider as non-negotiables in the Moroccan model. And next year we'll move to the third wave of scaling up the project. Actually, we are at 53% of coverage. Schools, public schools who are adopting this model. Next year, we will add 2,000 additional public school in order to reach the threshold of 83% of generalization of this model. So back to you, Divyani.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. I think you saw Maritza and me nodding our heads and smiling because I think everything you were saying was like amazing, amazing. This is great. And I'm sure even everyone who has their cameras off must be doing the same thing. And I think what's amazing is to hear this articulated from Mustafa, who comes from the Ministry of Education of Morocco. And for those who came a bit late, I was saying, Mustafa is a true TaRL champion and has been. And I think I just wanna congratulate the government of Morocco, because everything that Mustafa said right now, I mean, may sound quite simple in the way that he explained it, but actually each one of those non-negotiables is not straightforward to achieve in government systems, and it takes a lot of effort and alignment and work and commitment. And I think we are just so amazed to see the quality of the work that's happening in Morocco, and to see the discipline with which these aspects have been adopted, adapted, and the impact that we see in the country. So thank you so much, Mustafa, for sharing. And just a reminder to everyone, if you have questions for Mustafa, please do put them in the Q&A box. And then we're also going to come back again for another chat and to see the impact in a minute. But Maritza, I'm going to take us now to a very different context, right, of Central America, where Glasswing has been working for many, many years. And you work through a very distinct youth and community-centered model. That is very well suited to these contexts that you are working in. So what adaptations have helped you as Glasswing to develop the TaRL models that suit the Central American context, and what has surprised you along the way?
Thank you, Divyani. It's really great to be here and learn from all these champions of TaRL across the world. One thing I remember, one time when I met, the first time I was introduced to the international team, I remember Usha saying that simple does not mean easy. So a lot of it of what TaRL I always remember, simple does not mean easy. And it applies a lot to what I'm going to share about some of the adaptations that we've done. Like you mentioned, we have a very distinct model from what we've heard so far from the other colleagues. And Glasswing has always worked through a youth and community center model. Even before TaRL, we partner with public schools in Central America, but most of our work has focused on supporting young people through informal education, after-school programs, where we teach social emotional learning and creating safe spaces for these children and youth to learn. Often, these clubs are also led by volunteers from the same communities. And we began exploring TaRL because after the pandemic, we could clearly see our students struggling with foundational literacy and numeracy. And not just the students, but also the parents and the teachers, unable to support the students with the needs that they were having and with the tools that they had at the time. So that was the giving some context of what made us getting involved in more of the foundational learning, and where we were focusing mostly before in social emotional learning. So rather than trying to replicate a standard model with the support of Pratham International Team, of course, we focus on designing an approach that makes more sense to our context. This in terms of not just the resources and limitations of our school systems, the different dynamics that we have with the two-shift system, but also the dynamics of our after-school programs and different adaptations that we had to do to the content because of the cultural differences. And of course, like I said before, this wouldn't happen without the support of the international team. I really appreciate the trust and the guidance that they gave us to be, and the flexibility to adapt it responsibly to our context. So one of the first adaptations, and I think the most important adaptation that you refer to in the question, is that we place TaRL at the center of our fellows' work. So who are the fellows? The fellows are young alumni between the ages of 18 and 21 years old that have graduated from our community schools program, who commit a year of service at one of our schools to lead after school programs and engage with the community and become a mentor to other students. So prior to TaRL, their focus was mainly on leading these after school programs. And then when we introduced STAR and we made it their main focus of their year of service, this shifted also for our staff, adding additional intensive training and a lot of practice hours, not just for the fellows, but also for the staff who would become mentors to support the work of the fellows throughout the whole year. And this is not only in the TAR methodology, but also classroom management, which we know it's been a really huge, one of the main first challenges. And a lot of it has to do because, like I mentioned, the fellows are young people. Most of them have recently graduated from high school. They don't have any formal teaching background. And so we took that risk, and we knew that if we provided because the methodology itself it's simple but not easy. We knew that if when provided with the right support, with the right training, that they would be able to implement correctly. One advantage though of having these fellows implement the TaRL is that because they're alumni from the same schools, they already had that relationship with the community, especially with the children and with the teachers. So we've done a few implementations of TaRL with hire tutors that have a background in teaching, but sometimes the amount of time that it takes them to build that rapport, it takes more time. So that was a huge advantage, and I think it has played a lot in our favor of having the fellows implement, because children already know them, they trust them, and they see them as role models. In terms of the content, fortunately, we share the same language across the countries where we work, so we didn't have to focus on change any of that, but we did make some adaptations to local materials to exemplify more of the local context that each children can reflect to. Another important alignment was making or introducing into TaRL some of the trauma-informed practices that Classroom already uses, just to make sure that relationships continue to be at the center of all the work that we do. And this is mainly because a lot of the fellows, saw that and expressed to us that they saw a lot of the students carrying, some of those emotional burdens with stress, fear, frustration, instability. That has to do a lot of the context, as many of the communities that we work have faced a lot of violence and stigma over the years. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind, because we know that all of this trauma and exposure to violence directly affects attention, behavior, and their readiness to learn. So through this integration, fellows were able to also shift, from reacting to different behavior to understanding more of the emotional roots and responding with greater empathy to these challenges, which actually fit very well and naturally with the TaRL model because of its simplicity and fun activities, and how all of these activities also promotes a lot of community. it was also very important for us to, since the beginning, since we started designing the approach with the Pratham International team, flexibility. In some contexts, TaRL happens in after-school settings, which is how we usually partner with the schools. But in others, because of this two-shift system and other limitations, we couldn't do after-school settings. So we had to negotiate in-school time with school leaders, one teacher, one school at a time, as to not interrupt, as other colleagues have mentioned, the curriculum, the formal curriculum of the school settings. But because teachers understand the need, we were able to work together to make it happen. And because of the participation in all of our programs is voluntary, family engagement is essential, communication, and again, negotiation with the parents and with the teachers. It's a process that goes throughout the entire time of the implementation. I think one thing that surprised us the most was how quickly children were able to re-engage with learning once they finally were met, where they were. I think a lot of kids, in the perception sometimes that parents and teachers have, is that kids don't care about learning, or even the kids that start believing themselves that they're not good at math, right? That they're never going to succeed in school. But a lot, when we realize, is that once we start implementing TaRL and when we start meeting them where they are, kids start experiencing some success. And that success, even if it's once they are finally able to read a whole word or a whole paragraph together, then they start feeling motivated and confident to keep on learning. And one thing that also was really great is that we were not able just to see these confidence growth in our students when they started to, for the first time, solve, a subtraction, but also the fellows, because the fellows, honestly, when they start their fellowship, I think TaRL is the thing that scares them the most, because they probably also didn't have a good experience learning math. So they don't really like math, as most of us don't. But when they go through the training process and the practices and they start implementing, they fall in love with the methodology, and you can see them also gaining a lot more confidence. And also they have also told us that they develop a stronger sense of professional identity, because it gives them something very concrete also to see the results. They from the moment they start the clubs, where kids are not able to read a full paragraph, they don't understand what they're reading, or not being able to solve a simple subtraction or addition operation. And as they go through, they get very excited and they tell us, teacher, I helped someone learn how to do math. So that also gives them that professional sense of professionalism, that that's why they joined the fellowship in the first place. So we're very excited. For us, Classwing has been a huge, important addition to our program, our community schools model. We do not see TaRL anymore separate than the program, what we do in the community schools. And I think it has also helped us, give us a sharpened sense of purpose. Why is it that we do what we do? Because it everything starts from these foundational skills.
Thank you so much, Maritza. And, just listening to you speak, there's so much emotion in that, entire experience. And I think that's also so amazing, with TaRL, that when you are close to what's happening in the classroom and you see the kind of change that an innovation like TaRL can create for the children, it's really powerful. And I know we've seen that again, context after context, and we keep getting asked this question about socio-emotional learning, and what is TaRL doing? Is TaRL, sometimes people will say TaRL is too narrow, only focusing on reading and arithmetic. I think TaRL focuses on measuring reading and arithmetic, but we know, I think, as TaRL implementers, that there's a lot happening in the classroom, that is going much beyond just those reading and arithmetic skills for children. And I think it's experiences like yours that kind of bring that to life. So thank you so much, Maritza, for sharing. I'd like to invite Mustafa and Maritza now to share a bit about what is the data telling us from Morocco and Central America. So Mustafa, let's have you go first.
Okay, thank you, Divyani. So as you see here on this chart on the left, we have the Arabic language. I want to remind you that this is an aggregated data analysis of all the grades in Morocco during 4 weeks of intensive remediation of this school year, 25-26. So as you can see on the left for Arabic language, the students are pushed to for in toward the upper levels. You see that we have 31% at world level in the baseline. This percentage was reduced to 23. At the same time, paragraph and short story is improved from 28 to 36 and from 15 to 26. So if we take into consideration that grade 2 and 3 at least are not concerned by higher levels, the impact of higher levels, learning levels, would be more significant if we produce a separate chart per grade. The same thing applies on French in the middle. As you can see, the percentage of the beginners in the baseline was significant. 29 of beginners who cannot read letters. At the end line, this percentage dropped to 11%. The same thing for the letter level, 22 to 20. Maybe I could highlight here that the one aspect of adaptation we did concerning French language is that we have taken word level and subdivided it into three sub-levels, which are simple words and advanced words and complex graphemes. So this is one of the specificities of French language. We cannot talk about one word in French, but there are words with different levels of difficulties. I will take a moment to explain to you simple words. What does it mean? Like with the word papa, which is P-A-P-A. This is a consonant with a simple vowel. This is a simple word. If we take, for example, the word cartable, this word contains double consonants and vowels. So, or for example, the word clé, which means K, clé. When you say clé, you are using double consonant plus one vowel. So this type of words we have identified it as advanced word. And the upper level or the most difficult level in reading words is the complex grapheme. For example, if we consider the word grenouille or famille, which is family, it is written using I, double L, and E. And this combination of vowels and consonants produces a sound which is not difficult to master by kids. So word level in French is subdivided into three levels, and then we have sentence, which tackles difficulties of what we call in French the liaison or linking. For example, when you say mes amis, which means my friends, we have mes and we have emi, ami, and the s at the end. When we read, we must pronounce z sound, which is not written. So this is a kind of difficulties in French language, and we have condensed it in that level of complex grapheme. Then comes, of course, the text level. So in general, you see that the upper or the higher learning levels are improving between the baseline and the inline. On the right side as well, we have math. We have a significant improvements among the students who masters division from 7% to 16%, taking into consideration also that the kids of grade 2 and 3 are not concerned by division. So if we generate a new chart specific for higher levels, we could say significant improvement in the kids' learning. So globally, the analysis shows a positive impact during a short period of 4 weeks in the whole, of course, nationally, because these are aggregated result or data collected during this period. So let me say that actually we are satisfied with the results we got. And of course, all the remaining kids who still struggle can benefit from additional sessions of TaRL in the extended phase from October to June.
Fantastic, Mustafa. And I think, just often we tend to look at the top of the graph, but I think in TaRL, it's also important to look at the bottom of the graph. Like we have, when we are starting, we have high proportions of children who are at beginner letter levels, who are at, 1 digit, 2 digit. And that proportion is really, really going down significantly. And that's important to show that all children are progressing, right? And I think that's what's great about TaRL, that it's not just children at the top getting better, it's everyone is moving ahead. And I think that's really exciting to see here with the Morocco data as well. Thank you so much, Mustafa, for sharing.
Thank
Marit?
you.
Thank you. This is really exciting to share. I'm excited to share the results, but also excited to see how, in different contexts, you see the results and it's the same patterns, right? There's really no question that TaRL works. And even with all these variations of implementation, it works. So for us, success shows it at different levels. And I think when you look at the image, you can see clearly that from the baseline, we were really concerned and this has been proven across the different countries, across different schools, the results are basically the same. And you see that in math, it's especially worsening with only less than 80% of the students not being able to do basically any kind of basic math operation, not addition, not subtraction or anything. And in reading, they do a little bit better, but we still saw improvements of 43 percentage point improvement in the proportions of students who could at least learn a story. And it's very worrisome because in these are the results from our 2025 year implementation, where we work with students from 3rd grade to 5th grade. I think we even included a 6th grade from one of those schools. And you can imagine the frustration, right, from the students and from the teachers, unable to progress any learning of any other subject if these foundational skills are not in place. So it was really worrisome for us when we did the baseline. But of course, now with the experience that we have with TaRL, we know that if we commit, to the time of the instructional time that the methodology requires, that we are guaranteed to have these kind of results once the intervention is over. So what for us is, it's really been great because you see that, and it's pretty similar, I think, across the world. By 3rd grade, kids in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras are already expected to do subtraction. And in terms of reading, they are expected also to fully read and comprehend a text. So having that 75%, it's not even 75% of students were not able to do that. It's a huge success for the program. But success, like, as you know, just doesn't really just show up on these paragraphs. Like I mentioned before, it's also the social emotional learning aspect that Dejani was mentioning that is integrated as part of the methodology of TaRL and what we do with the after school, with the community schools model. But kids began to interact more with their peers, right? And being more excited about learning. And the parents and the teachers, when we did the interviews with the teachers about how they felt about the implementation, all of them not only focus on the results of the actual math and literacy and numeracy learning, but they also on this social emotional development that they saw, a transformation that they saw in the students, them being able to socialize more with their peers, and again, just feeling more excited and more confident about learning. I know we're going to speak about the challenges soon, but it's interestingly that one of the challenges we have sometimes is with the adults, because foundational learning and the role of play is not always value, or they see, difficulties when they see the clubs implementing and they see kids playing around, but we're actually learning as they play. So when they start seeing the progress, that perspective also begins to shift.
Fantastic, Maritza. Thank you so much. And I think it's amazing to see the results. There was a question in the chat about duration, and I think there's been some variation, but I think usually between 40 to 50 hours of implementation. So it's not a whole lot of time. But it's incredible to see the kind of results here. So thank you. Thank you again, Maritza, for sharing and I think this will just continue to improve over time. I'm going to invite all the speakers back now. Um, we're going to have a quick rapid fire round, and I know everyone's been doing a great job of answering the questions in the Q&A box. So thank you so much. Please keep your questions coming. We're going to keep answering them. But for now, we're going to get into a quick rapid fire segment. We are all, TaRL is a journey of evolution. As you heard from Karthik, even as the approach has evolved over time, but in each context, TaRL continues to evolve. We continue to face, opportunities, but also importantly, challenges that we all have to face and find ways to overcome. So this segment, I'm going to ask our speakers to pose their top of mind challenge. Right now, I'm going to ask one of the other speakers to give a quick reflection. So, Karthik, let's get started with you. What's top of mind for you in terms of a challenge on TaRL?
I'm going to try to keep my challenge short so that I get a short answer, but it's difficult. One thing that we see when you implement TaRL at scale, there needs to be year-on-year continuity. A lot of effort, a lot of momentum comes in, but for us to see sustainable change, it takes time. How do we ensure that momentum moves from one year to the next? A lot of the practices that everyone spoke about, you see it year on year because at times there's fatigue that sets in, priorities change, champions in the government move. So, what are some things that we can ensure? What are some things we can do that we can ensure that there is year on year continuity? Because if we know from evidence, at least in India, that if you do it for multiple years, you'll eventually reach your goal and actually move on to another challenge, another problem to solve. So that's my question. We haven't cracked it yet, but happy to hear from others.
Titus, what do you think?
So can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think, as TaRL Africa, I think we've been grappling with this for a long time. And what we see, the question I think is about how do you sustain, implementation of TaRL in the classroom and ensure that it's coherent with the pedagogy and the academic practices of TaRL. I think this is the elephant in the room, to be honest, is that unless the program is aligned with government systems. So we feel that if you align, the program with government needs, first of all, that a government would have said, we feel like we need this program. Our children are not reading. And we've designed a strategy or a mission or a vision that we need to get our children from this level to that level. If you get a government that is aligned that way, it's much more easier for you to see implementation, fidelity, or oversight of the program, because then it's owned by government. It's not one that is run by an NGO or a donor. So it's very important that that where it is implemented, there's demand for the program. That whether that comes from governments or parents or the community, but there's push that is coming across the sector to improve the different sectors or different stakeholders to improve learning outcomes. Then that way, then you can align the support systems of the ministry to ensure that this happens. I think also using government structures as we've done and building that capacity within government does help. I think one of the major challenges is if the program is too costly, I think you'll face challenges of adoption by government. We've seen a lot of programs that are heavy. We try to keep TaRL light and lean so that it's easy for government to sustain the programs and then embed it into all the systems of government, whether that is not, I'll give the example. I'm in Zambia today. I was with one of the members of parliament who is in the Committee of Education. And his statement was that Catch Up is a government-led program. And we plan to take this program, fund it, and run with it because it is helping our children. So I think if you have those kind of sentiments coming from not just the Ministry of Education, but also Parliament. So if you have alignment across different either accountability or sectors of the of government, not just education, but government finance ministries that are seeing the need for the education systems to improve, I think you have a higher chance of ensuring that it continues to be implemented and it's aligned with all the systems of government, including the pedagogy, the curriculum, and also any other teacher development needs. But I must say that as TaRL Africa, we have seen a lot of governments fund their own TaRL program on the continent. And that to us is a signal that this can continue because governments have their skin in the game, right?
Right.
They're not seeing it as externally driven. So I think there will be challenges, but there would be governments that will take and run with it. And those are the ones that are aligned, that have proper policies or structures of the ministry and systems aligned with TAR.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks so much, Titus. And I know that this is a challenge that is so unique to each context, but so many good practices that are applicable across contexts. And I think like now I'm just thinking back to what Mustafa was saying. It's like check, 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 check to everything Titus was saying, So it's great to hear that Morocco is an example. But I mean Morocco has its own challenges. So Mustafa, what's top of mind for you right now as a challenge?
Okay, so as I've mentioned before, one of the cornerstones we have set to maintain the consistency and the continuity of the model is to think about the struggling students who are still facing difficulties in order to catch up. So this is why we have architected the second phase of remediation, the extended phase of remediation, and which really necessitates the engagements of families and the community in order to ensure that kids will come to school after they have finished their hours concerning the official curriculum. So we have taken some measures like planning regular meetings with the parents in order to come to school, to meet the teachers, to share with them the results and the improvements of their kids, and in order also and mostly the families whose kids are facing the difficulties get convinced that their kids need extra support, and they need to help us as administration and as pedagogical team to bring the teacher maybe on Saturday free time of the kids in order to benefit from this support. I want to know what is the opinion of our colleagues from other countries. How do they deal with this challenge of bringing and onboarding families and educational communities to help in the implementation of this reform and help kids improve their learners?
Maritza.
Yes, thank you. What Mustafa is describing really resonates also with us. We've done several things to address this challenge as well. A few things I can share is that one, it's from our part, we became to be more intentional with parents from the beginning. We realized that we couldn't assume families understood what TaRL is. They're familiar with what we do in the after school programs. It's sports, science, but TaRL was a little bit different. So we had to explain. And like you mentioned, sometimes it's the parents refusing to or not. And a lot of the times it's just not understanding, what this means, that their kids are not performing at the level. So we spend a lot of time explaining the approach in very simple terms, why children are grouped by level, why play matters, and what is it that we're actually working towards. Also being transparent, not just with the teachers and with the school officials, but with the parents themselves. So every time we do a cycle of assessment, at the learning assessment, at the initial assessment, at the intermediate assessment, and at the end, final assessment, we share the learning and the results with with the community. And we have discussions about what all of these results actually mean. And what is what shifts the most is that once parents and families start seeing the improvements on the children, not just academically, but also in the confidence and motivation, then they start understanding and supporting more naturally. But still, we still have issues, because especially we do it sometimes in El Salvador with after school hours. So sending kids back to the school can sometimes be a challenge to the parents. So they do not yet understand the importance. So on top of that, we began implemented community cafes, which are these space for open conversations about education, where we talk with parents about why attendance matters, what learning looks like today, and what is it that what they want for their children. And what's really surprising and powerful is that when parents start talking from and reflecting on their own experiences in school, they realize that they probably would have enjoyed learning more if it had looked like what they're seeing in the TaRL clubs. Because and that reflection in themselves, without us telling them, oh, you should do this, you should do that. We asked them, what was your experience like in school? And they're like, oh, I hated math. I hated that. It was very boring. And then we explained to them what we do in TaRL clubs. And they're like, oh, maybe I would have enjoyed more school if it was done that way. So relationships are important. And we know that trust and collaboration is built through, it takes time and a lot of openness, consistency, and creating these spaces for honest dialogue. I think when families feel respected and informed, and the information is shared transparently, then there's a lot more space for collaboration.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Maritza. And I think now we have to do a little video on community cafes, so you can share it with everyone. Great, thanks, Titus. I'm coming to you now. What's the top of mind challenge for TaRL Africa?
Thank you. Our major challenge is one that we discussed more recently in our boardroom, but also with some of the stakeholders, is how do you make sure that TaRL actually is implemented with fidelity? And with fidelity means that it's done well, it's evidence-based, so you want it to be done per the evidence. In fact, when governments themselves take ownership and they might modify it. And then how also do you ensure that TaRL happened today, this morning, right? Or whatever time it was to happen. How do you make sure that that happens when in fact a lot of times it's ministry officials, it's governments running it, and that's a big question we are grappling with. We've developed some tools, but still we are trying to keep TaRL as lean as possible so that it's not overwhelming the ministries of education or staff. So that's fidelity around doing it well as making sure that it happened today or tomorrow or the days that are planned for it. So it's a question of how do you monitor it without overwhelming the system of education.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Mustafa, we'd love to hear your quick reflections on that question.
Yes, from our Moroccan expertise and experience, because we are now in the fourth year of implementing TaRL, there are three cases to consider. The first one is the certification protocol, because once we make sure that the teachers have benefited from a solid training that combines theory with practice, and we give privilege to the practice, and that the teacher, once he is in his classroom, he receives the pedagogical inspector or the mentor who attends TaRL sessions. and observe how the teacher is conducting these activities. And he elaborates in administrative report to recognize and acknowledge that teacher as qualified to benefit from a certification. Then we are surpassing the first barrier. Uh, second elements we have to consider is the proximity mentorship. Actually, and by using the National Information System, MASAR, the mentor can open the dashboard of his district and see which school is having most problems, or where are kids struggling more than others. So by using now the digital tool, we could target schools with difficulties, and we could intervene in real time to bring solution and help teachers to surpass and to bring answers to the difficulties they are facing. So, in addition, there's a fourth component in our framework or the model we have conceived in the Pioneer School models, which is the quality label. So, schools who succeed to meet the 12 standards of quality we have defined in consultation with them, they could benefit from this label, which corresponds to a budget that as an incentive for these schools who made efforts to improve the kids learning. One last thing is the verification mechanism, of course, because when we verify, we make sure that teachers will be objective in defining the real the students level in the pre-test and the post-test. And this is something that is not done only internally, but we have also external evaluators who make random verification across the country, and this is very helpful for us. And as you can see through the data we have shared with you, we still have significant improvement in the kids' learnings.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. And I think, Titus, we should organize a learning visit to Morocco to really
You will be
see
very welcome.
in action. I think that would be very exciting. That brings us to our last challenge for today. Maritza, over to you.
Yes, thank you. So one of the main challenges for us is a scheduling of TaRL sessions. As I mentioned, most of the public school systems in our countries have a two-shift system. So students are only in school for about 4 to 5 hours per day, and all of it or most of it is allocated to the official curriculum, and it's very strict, to work around that. So that leaves very limited flexibility to our TaRL sessions, especially given infrastructure constraints and the frequent school suspensions that we experience due to climate events, political events like elections, and our schools are used for voting, health emergencies, and schools construction. So I want to know from any of the panelists about how do they come about, scheduling TaRL sessions in addition to their regular classes.
Karthik.
Yeah, the simplest question was given to me. So no, I honestly feel challenges breed opportunities. It's a good way to come up with alternatives. I saw your slides right now, and you're seeing tremendous improvement even with the challenges that we have. So I actually don't have a solution to what you're saying, because I think you've actually found your own solution of working around it. And that's the beauty of teaching at the right level, that you can adapt it. You don't, there is a broader playbook. There are principles that you have to follow. There are guidelines that can be adhered to, and non-negotiables, as others spoke about. But at the same time, you could be flexible about it. What's key is to be consistent. Uh, do it even if it's for a short period of time, even if it's after school, it's consistently done. I think a lot of effort needs to go into convincing people the need. And with time, over time, you will see that that limited 5 hours, and they'll see outcomes from doing teaching at the right level. Otherwise, to see that it should be within those 5 hours, it can bring about big change, and it'll have a multiplier effect for other things that are happening in the school. So, long story short, I think challenges are great because it pushes all of us to think differently, come up with different solutions, and potentially, being consistent, you will find a workaround and those results uh, will come through. So, I don't think I answered your question, but I think there's lots to learn from others through your challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Karthik. I mean, I think that's a great answer, right? That it's a work in progress. I think keep at it, and I think that's also so exciting about TaRL, right? That we are in this constant process of improvement, which I think is at least I feel one of the strengths of TaRL in every context. That it's not like we design something and we just keep implementing that and we just keep implementing that. We keep finding ways to improve and strengthen and increase possibilities for children. So thank you very much. We are at time. I think we have um, answered most, if not all, questions in the Q&A box. So thank you so much to our participants for the engagement, for the questions, for being here with us for 1.5 hours today. And thank you so much to our speakers. It's really been amazing for me to hear these stories, and of course to be on this journey with all of you. So thank you once again, and thank you very much to HundrED for this opportunity to bring us all together on this platform. And Jamie, I'll hand over to you for any last words. But thank you very much, and we look forward to staying in touch.